Nearing the end of the Second World War, the situation in the entire European theater was chaotic. People went missing, never to be found again. Others purposefully disappeared. We've all probably heard of Nazis fleeing to Argentina to start a new life, or about Operation Paperclip, the secret program by the United States to recruit German scientists, engineers, and technicians. Now, it is a bit more likely that you haven't heard of the most senior Nazi that vanished in the wake of the Second World War, Heinrich Müller, also known as Gestapo Müller. Presumed to have committed suicide or killed during the final days of the Second World War, a series of events and KGB defectors in the 1960s suddenly caused much doubt on his fate. Born in München in Bavaria in 1900, Müller volunteered for the German army in 1917 during the last year of the First World War. He served as a pilot with distinction, earning the Iron Cross decoration. Following Germany's defeat in 1918, he joined the police force of München. The years of the Weimar Republic, as we probably know, were incredibly tumultuous, with violence from communists and right-wing extremists alike. The police were, in theory, supposed to maintain peace and order, but Bavarian police were notorious for collaborating with right-wing paramilitary organizations. Müller rapidly rose through the ranks as a competent and ambitious policeman. Because of police protocol, he could not join any ideological movement, and he wouldn't until after Hitler came to power. In 1929, Müller was promoted to Secretary of the Politische Polizei, a department of the Bavarian police that was solely responsible for combating communist organizations. Now, following Hitler's power grab in 1933 and him becoming Führer in 1934, Müller joined the Schutzstaffel, more commonly known as the SS. This elite force was the principal agency of security and surveillance within Nazi Germany. As you can imagine, a man such as Müller with adequate experience prosecuting communists was a valuable asset to the organization. The SS leadership recognized him for his efficiency, diligence, and dedication. After joining the SS, he transferred to Berlin, where he started working for the Geheime Staatspolizei, or Gestapo. The literal translation of this body was the Secret State Police. It had been created the year before under the supervision of Hermann Göring. In the next several years, the Gestapo would grow out to be one of the most efficient and dangerous intelligence organizations the world has ever seen. Müller quickly rose through the ranks of the Gestapo, although he only joined the NSDAP, Hitler's party, in 1938 because not being a member prevented him from rising as quickly as he wanted to through the ranks. Besides that, he also served as commander of the Sicherheitsdienst, which was the intelligence department of the SS. Now, as a member of the SS, Müller became the protégé of Reinhard Heydrich, the architect of the Holocaust and director of the Gestapo. In 1936, Müller was promoted to chief of operations of the Gestapo, and in 1939, when Heydrich became director of the Reich Main Security Office, Müller succeeded him as director of the Gestapo. As director, Müller ensured the tracking down, arresting, and interrogation of enemies of the Nazi regime, which, well, as we know, consisted of everyone not fiercely dedicated to the Nazi ideology. One of the events he participated in was Kristallnacht in November 1938, the notorious pogrom against Jewish citizens throughout Germany by the Sturmabteilung paramilitary forces. Now, within his capacity, Müller was a willing participant to many of the war crimes of the Nazis. He attended the Wannsee Conference, the meeting where the leaders of all administrative units of Nazi Germany discussed and started the final solution to the Jewish question, or the Holocaust. Müller was representative of the Gestapo. Adolf Eichmann, the man that was crucial for the logistical implementation of the Holocaust, was the direct subordinate of Müller. Throughout the war, Müller committed countless of war crimes against both Jews and other undesirables, as the Nazis called them. He also orchestrated one of the most successful counterintelligence operations during the war. The Rote Kapelle was a network of several resistance circles that fed information to Soviet agents. Making clever use of double agents, Müller ensured the Gestapo and Abwehr fed the Soviets disinformation. Eventually, Müller's Gestapo was instrumental in not just arresting large numbers of German resistance, but executing 143 of them. Throughout the Second World War, Müller remained a loyal and willing participant of the Nazi regime. During the final days of the war, with the Soviets approaching on the east, he was in the Führerbunker in Berlin together with other high-ranking Nazi officials and Adolf Hitler himself. He was one of the most prominent Nazis the Allies wanted to capture and stand trial. Actually, to the degree the Counterintelligence War Room issued a memo to all US interrogators about the top 5 Nazi officials to look out for, with Müller on the list. The last sighting of Müller was on the 29th of April, one day before Hitler's suicide, after which there have been no concrete sightings of him. Documents reveal he refused to join a group of Nazi officials that wanted to break out of Berlin. There are rumors that he assumed a fake name and fled to Austria. Other rumors state that the United States recruited him. Although the United States recruited Nazi engineers through Operation Paperclip, it is less likely that they'd recruit a man like Müller. The Allied powers did look for him though, but Heinrich Müller was such a common name in Germany that it didn't make tracking him down any easier. Now actually, it was the reason Müller was called Gestapo Müller, to differentiate him from another SS general with the exact same name. Now, one of the most logical explanations for his disappearance would be that Müller simply died or committed suicide during the final days of the war, like so many others. And the general assumption was that he had died during the last days of the Third Reich. That was until 1963 when authorities opened his supposed grave, and it turned out that Müller's body wasn't in there. It wasn't a coincidence authorities opened the grave, and it had to do with some Cold War counterintelligence and KGB defectors that Müller came into the picture again. In 1961, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Golniewski, a Polish KGB agent, defected to the West. He provided names of many Soviet agents within Western intelligence apparatuses, but also claimed Müller was living in Moscow. The story goes that as the Red Army seized Berlin, Müller defected to the Soviets and they recruited him to their counterintelligence branch. Now, that is just one story, but that same year Adolf Eichmann stood trial in Israel for his war crimes. As we have seen, he was the direct subordinate of Müller, and he confirmed that Müller had defected to the Soviets and fled to Moscow as well. To top it all off, a third story unrelated to the previous two said the same thing. During the 1960s, an anonymous KGB double agent confirmed to the CIA that the Soviet Union recruited Müller to the KGB in 1945, and as such an investigation in Müller's fate commenced. Now, in 1945, a Berlin morgue attendant, Fritz Leopold, had told US investigators that Müller had died and was buried in a Berlin cemetery. Even Müller's family accepted this story and had placed a headstone at the supposed grave. So imagine the surprise when authorities exhumed the grave in 1963, and the body in there was not Müller's. Related to the surprising revelation was a story that Müller did commit suicide during the last days of the war. Reason for this assumption is that he was found supposedly in uniform with documents in his breast pocket and buried in a Jewish cemetery. The story is odd though. If he wore his uniform and had personal records on him, why would he be buried in a Jewish cemetery? Either way, because of the Cold War going on and the division between East and West Germany, the investigators had no way of checking the Jewish cemetery in eastern Berlin. An official CIA document from 1972 titled The Hunt for Gestapo Müller states that there were strong indications he collaborated with the Soviets. Still, there also were strong indications he had died in Berlin. Nobody was sure, but it was certain that in the wake of the Second World War, nobody had diligently looked for him. There is no credible evidence for Müller's survival, and in 2013 the Jewish cemetery was checked. The investigation concluded that it was somewhat likely Müller was in fact buried there, although it does seem incredibly strange that someone with a full SS uniform would be carried and buried there. Now, even if that was him, then why would multiple KGB double agents and even Eichmann separately confirm he worked for the Soviets? Anyway, I don't think we'll get a concrete answer to that. I mean, there are many different stories and it has never been decisively concluded what happened to Müller. Thank you for watching this video. I would also like to thank all my patrons for their generous support. If you enjoy House of History and want to support my work, consider checking me out on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you will gain access to the exclusive Patreon series. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.